Hello, a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on this week's show, the gloves are off heading into Israel's elections. This as long-term Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces a formidable challenger in Army Chief Benny Gantz. The plight of Lebanon's Iraqi Christian community. We bring you a special report on the challenges of life in exile after fleeing the Islamic State group. Also on this week's Middle East Matters, a look at the heavy metal scene in Syria with musician and filmmaker Monzer Darwish. Syrian Metal is war, coming up later in the programme. Thank you for watching. We start with Israel, where a mudslinging campaign is underway ahead of the April 9th election. And up until several months ago, Benjamin Netanyahu was on track to secure a fifth term in office, making him the country's longest-serving prime minister. But as France 24's Clément Bonneroy explains, his position is being challenged by Benny Gantz, an army chief.
A record 47 parties are competing for seats in the upcoming parliamentary elections in Israel. Among them, Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party. For the first time in a decade, polls predict it may not come out on top, a direct consequence of the Prime Minister's legal woes. Netanyahu faces indictment in 3 corruption cases on charges of bribery, fraud and breach of trust. Likud is currently neck and neck with the more centrist Blue and White Alliance, which brings together Benny Gantz's Israel Resilience Party and Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid. Threatened but not beaten, Netanyahu is determined to win a fifth term in office. He's hoping to form a governing coalition with the nationalist far right, as well as religious parties. One of those potential allies is the so-called Jewish Power Party, an extreme Jewish supremacist movement formed by followers of the late anti-Arab rabbi Meir Kahan. To enter Israel's parliament, a party needs to win at least 3.25% of total votes. Arab parties currently hold 13 out of the chamber's 120 seats, making them the third largest coalition in the Knesset. But this time they're not running under a joint list. Israel's left-wing parties, meanwhile, are hardly a threat for Netanyahu. The Zionist Union split into 2 earlier this year, after Labour Party leader Avi Gabay said he would no longer partner with Tzipi Livni's Hatenua party. Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to remain in office whether he's indicted or not. If he wins, he'll become Israel's longest-serving leader.
Now, do make sure you tune into Middle East Matters next Tuesday, where we'll be bringing you special coverage of that vote. Turning our attention to another decisive election. Turks took to the polls over the weekend in a local vote, which was largely seen as a referendum on Recep Tayyip Erdogan's leadership. His ruling AK party lost control of the capital, Ankara, in a blow to his 16-year rule. They're also on track to lose control of Istanbul, so they've decided to lodge objections to the result in all 39 districts of the city. Now, when the Islamic State group swept through Iraq in 2013, one of the many minority communities that found themselves in the firing line were the Christians. They were forced to flee their towns and villages across the conflict-ridden country, with thousands seeking refuge in Lebanon. Today, 16,000 of them call Beirut their home. However, while their immediate security worries have diminished, life in exile has been arduous. Our correspondent Leila Maulana Alan reports.
Dekwane, in the Christian suburbs of Beirut. Hani, a 59-year-old Iraqi engineer, came here from Baghdad 2.5 years ago with his wife and 3 children, 2 of whom are disabled. Hani and his family are among the thousands of Iraqis who found refuge in Lebanon, having fled from Islamic State.
We came because of the situation in Iraq. I have a daughter who they tried to kidnap while she was on her way to church. My wife and my daughters work as housemates. The international community has forgotten us.
Kamal is 64. He moved to Beirut with his family 4 years ago, after having been briefly kidnapped by Islamists in Iraq.
They demanded a small ransom because I'm Christian and therefore a heretic in their eyes. The Islamic State group entered our village at 8 p.m. on the 6th of August 2014. 80% of our village was destroyed. I've been waiting for a visa for New Zealand for a year and 3 months. The Lebanese state doesn't care about us. Only churches are doing something.
Steps away from Kamel's home is the Notre Dame Social Center. The majority of the Iraqi Christian refugees belong to the Chaldean Church. Faced with the Lebanese government's inertia, the church is trying to provide for their needs.
You asked if the Lebanese government helps these refugees. My response is a total negative. We've tried to speak to all the authorities in Lebanon, but nothing's been done. We're talking about 4,000 families of Iraqi refugees with children, so between 15,000 and 16,000 people.
Despite the aid provided by the Chaldean Church, most of the Iraqis want to leave the country. Lebanon is little more than a waiting room for them, as they wait for a visa for a third country and a journey to a new home.
Now, 27-year-old Monzer Darwish is what he refers to as a metalhead. After losing one of his band members and friends in 2013 to the Syrian conflict, he decided to make a documentary about the heavy metal scene in the country. Syrian Metal is War looks at how these musicians continued to perform during the war while facing potential threats from both the government and the Islamic State group. Now, after fleeing Syria, Monzer made his way to the Netherlands in 2014 and started editing the film, which premiered in the UK last month. Let's watch a clip of Syrian Metal is War.
يعني كان الحياة فيها للصبح ما توقف يعني انتهت.
Monzer Darwish, thank you so much for being with us here on Middle East Matters. Now, after losing your friend, your band member, why did you decide to shed light on the metal scene in Syria? I imagine at that point a lot of hope had been lost.
Syrian Metal is War is really personal to me, and the musicians in it are, I mean, I saw myself in these musicians. I saw their success as my own success, and I think I wanted to remind them that they're just musicians. They're not fighters. They should only do music, even if it's a war zone, even if it's a wartime. If you're a musician, be a musician. You might help get peace more than anyone else. It might be you. So this kind of question that people get during war times, I think. But this is the main motive, reminding people that they should stick to what they're doing, music, art.
But of course, while you were doing that, you faced quite a lot of challenges in making Syrian Metal is War, didn't you?
Well, to begin with, filming itself was so hard because it wasn't possible to get any clearance, and both sides found the camera really as a threat, kind of. Even if it's not just a journalist, be it a civilian just filming with his cell phone, it could be a problem for him. So you can imagine. And adding metal to it, this is another layer of danger for the whole thing. So.
Another layer of danger, and of course, even before the war in Syria, metal was seen as a taboo. So did that itself pose a hurdle for you?
Well, it wasn't banned officially, but it was basically fought by everyone for some reason. Everyone saw it as a negative thing. They accused the musicians of going to graveyards at the night and drinking cat's blood, while in fact they were only going to record songs at their studios or at their homes. So you can imagine there were so many accusations against these people, and 99% for no reason.
Of course, the musicians themselves are having a lot of challenges. Some of them had been detained. You told me about this earlier. How did you convince them to take part in this documentary? Because some of them have had their identities concealed by you.
Well, I think mainly because I'm a metalhead myself, they trusted me. I knew some people in the film before I did film them, but the other half, they didn't know me before. So I think being a metalhead really helped me get through with this,
Now, you've previously said that you are inspired by chaos.
Yes.
So if that's the case, at what point and why did you decide to leave your country, Syria?
Well, there were so many reasons. Mainly because I wanted to see a little bit of hope for, I'm still, I was 18 when the war started, so it had, first I wanted to stay. I really wanted to stay. And I still get my inspiration from chaos. But at a point, you look at your future and you don't see anything. You really need to take any kind of a step. So I went to Algeria, Turkey, and then I had to take the rubber boat to Greece, and then I ended up in the Netherlands.
So you've had this really challenging journey to the Netherlands, and of course you've been along the way editing this documentary.
Actually, I did it in the Netherlands. Along the way, I got married. My journey wasn't short, and it wasn't easy. When I got to the Netherlands, a friend from Switzerland helped with the crowdfunding initiative, and then I got the editing gear, so I edited the film.
Monzer, I imagine that this documentary has been relatively widely viewed inside the country. What kind of reactions have you had coming out of Syria?
Well, I got both negative and positive reactions. I mostly look at the positive ones, and most of them said they got like a motive to record again and to play again and to share their music. Before, nobody actually tried to document the metal scene before, or tried to document what metal musicians are doing in Syria during the war or even before the war. Nobody looked at it, kind of. And I'm glad I have the opportunity now to share their music. I mean.
So you've provided a platform for them, and hopefully those inside Syria who are against metal music can see that it's not about Satanism.
I hope they would get it.
Monzer Darwish, thank you so much for being with us on Middle East Matters. And thank you for watching this edition of the show. Do stay tuned, more news coming up very shortly.